Hello everyone. So if you're watching this, that means that you've found my donation page for Camh, for my bridal tea gathering party, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's officially being called. I've been kept in the dark and being surprised by most things. The only thing I really have control and say over is this page. So basically I wanted to make a video to kind of explain why I have a donation page to the Center of Addiction and Mental Health as opposed to having a registry from Bed Bath & Beyond for towels and pots and pans and sheets like most bride-to-bees have. 1 in 5 Canadians are currently dealing with mental illness, and I am one of them. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 21, but I don't know exactly how long I've really been dealing with it. I can trace back years before that diagnosis of feeling that something was off, I guess, for lack of a better word. I would come home from school and I'd be incredibly upset and feel weighted, but there wasn't an event that I could tie that to. I felt this overcoming sadness, but I didn't know why. For lack of better words, I was sad for no reason. And I just kind of kept that just bottled up in me. I didn't talk about it until I was in university, my 3rd year of university, and I'd been taking psychology classes. And I fell in love with psychology, and in particular, I took a physiological psychology course, and we had a guest lecturer talk about depression and antidepressants and how they work, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. It was a big aha moment, because so much of what he was saying was, I was like, huh, I feel that. I've experienced that. So I started to think, what if depression is what explains this sadness for no reason, as I felt. So I kept that nugget, that in my head, and I just kind of, I kept it there for a bit, because I didn't know what to do with it. And it was kind of scary, this idea of, okay, he's talked about depression, but in order to get on these antidepressants that he's talked about, I need to go to a doctor and I need to tell them what's going on. And I had these thoughts of, what if they don't believe me? What if I'm making all this up? What if they think I'm lying? And then I thought, okay, well, what about if my family finds out? What about if my friends find out? And that's the first time I really started to understand and realize that there's a stigma attached to mental illness. A lot of what you hear in the media with mental illness attached to it is talking about suicides or people who have committed horrible crimes who have a history of mental illness. So it kind of can create this fear of saying you have mental illness because you're worried people are going to think that you're a huge danger to yourself and others. I think a lot of people think that, maybe there's, like, it's painfully obvious who has mental illness and who doesn't, but it's really, like I said, 1 in 5 Canadians. So most of the people who deal with it, they blend into the crowd, and you wouldn't pick up on it. You don't know unless they tell you. So I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of people thinking negative things about me. I was afraid of not being believed. For the anxiety aspect of it, I've talked a little about the depression. For the anxiety aspect of it, I kind of started to see, like, for lack of better words, my personality disappear maybe. When I was younger, I was a lot more open and talkative and had a lot more friends. And then just as I got older, I drew into myself a lot. And part of it can be growing and maturing, and your personality changes throughout your life. But I felt like almost in a sense, a shell of who I once was. And I know, all of you know that I'm not an open book. I'm not a very talkative person. I'm introverted. And what you may not have known before now is why I'm not more talkative is because basically the scariest thing in the world to me is making small talk with people. Something that seems so normal and unthreatening to others, it's terrifying to me. I strongly fear and feel like I am being negatively judged whenever I'm in a social interaction. I feel like whenever I'm talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna think that was stupid, or they're gonna, or I pick apart every tiny little thing that I say and do when I'm around others. And that's why I don't talk more. And why? And I think a problem is, and I've experienced it, people have outright said to me, yeah, I thought you were cold. I thought you hated me. When really I'm like, no, I'm terrified of small talk. And there's another, people aren't meaning to be, they're not meaning to be discriminatory. They're not meaning to hurt me. But again, that judgment is made that I'm cold. I'm unfriendly. I'm not. I'd love to get to know you more, and I'd love to be your friend, but it's extremely difficult for me. So I guess that's one thing, I encourage you to, to, again, not be so quick to judge. Maybe that person that seems really lazy on first glance and can't get themselves out of bed, maybe it's because they're because they're depressed. Maybe that person who seems really cold and unfeeling and like they shut others out. Maybe they have anxiety. Maybe that's, maybe that person who, and also, you know, it can kind of go the other way, is don't be throwing around mental illness just willy-nilly. If you like your desk at work clean, that doesn't make you OCD. That doesn't mean you have obsessive compulsive disorder. If, you know, someone's really skinny, that doesn't mean they have anorexia. And I think eliminating some of that just throwing around these diagnoses and mental illness, I think that can really help. Because again, like some people might think, oh, it's not that serious. But really, it's a serious thing. It affects a lot of people. And like I said, it impacts every day of my life. So again, I guess back to, so I talked about stigma, being afraid to come forward. And I just wanted to, I guess, speak a little more on that, about some studies that have been done with regards to stigma and some stigmas that people have and how it can really affect things. So according to a 2008 survey, just 50% of Canadians would tell their friends or coworkers that they have a family member with mental illness, compared to 72% who would discuss a diagnosis of cancer and 68% who would talk about a family member who has diabetes. 42% of Canadians were unsure whether they would socialize with a friend who has mental illness. 55% of Canadians said they would be unlikely to enter a spousal relationship with someone who has mental illness. I'm making this video because I'm getting married. But upon hearing that I have mental illness, 55% of people would kick me to the curb. 46% of Canadians thought that people use their mental illness as an excuse for bad behavior. And 27% said they would be fearful of being around someone who suffers from serious mental illness. So though we are definitely making some progress, things have gotten better with mental illness. We have things like Bella Let's Talk Day, which really, it does help to get talking about mental illness. And people have slowly started to become more open, but we still have a long way to go. People are still very scared to come forward and to talk about their feelings, what they're feeling. I encourage everyone to, even if you're not mentally ill, talk about your feelings with people. Mental health is something that we all have. It's important for all of us. Everyone can benefit from practicing better mental health. Another reason why I'm very passionate about mental illness and mental health is because even before my diagnosis of mental illness, I had mental health very strongly touch my life. My uncle, died by suicide. And it was a very shocking thing. It was a big wake-up call to me about how serious mental illness really is, and how it may feel like one of those things, oh, it happens to other people, but it can very well happen to you. And a very surprising thing for me was I knew a lot of people dealt with mental illness, but it was surprising doing some of the research for this video. I learned that 50% of Canadians by the age of 40 will have had some kind of bout of mental illness. 50%. Half of people, when they're approximately halfway through their life, will have dealt with mental illness at some point. In fact, mental illness is the leading cause of disability in Canada. It costs about 500,000 employed Canadians are prevented from attending work each week because of mental illness. The economic burden of mental illness in Canada is an estimated $51 billion a year, including healthcare costs, lost productivity, and reductions in health-related quality of life. When it comes to funding mental health, mental health accounts for about 10% of medical visits, but only receives about 7% of the funding. And at first glance, it seems like, okay, 3% deficit, not that bad. But that 3% deficit actually accounts for $1.5 billion. So that's part of the reason why I chose to I chose the Center of Addiction and Mental Health as the charity that I wanted to request donations to, was because mental health is an area of health that is it is underfunded. It doesn't get the funding in proportion to the amount of people that have to deal with it. And the unfortunate thing is, if you break your arm, you can go to the hospital and get a cast for free. But mental health care, unfortunately, some mental health care, it's not free. Therapists are it's very costly to go to therapy. And unfortunately, it's not something covered by OHIP. So money, not only stigma, but money can also be something that causes people to not seek the help that they need. And there are some resources out there that offer therapy for no or little cost, but there's often large wait times. And when serious mental illness is a case, you don't have 6 months to wait to see the therapist. But the good thing is we do have places like Camh, which is a facility that offers both inpatient and outpatient care. It is the largest mental health facility in Canada. And they work to not only provide care for patients, but also they do campaigning for reducing stigma. They do they work to try to change legislation to account for, to make, change legislation in favor of mental illness. Things like the implementation of personal leave days, where you can, you're entitled to have days where you call up your boss and just say, I'm taking a personal day. you're entitled to so many of the days that year, and your boss can't deny you those days, and they can't ask you and push you to tell them why you're taking those days. So the reason, one of the reasons that we have those is because of mental illness, is because of people being afraid to call their bosses and say, I can't come into work today because I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed. Sorry, just went on a little, there's so much information, there's so much that I want to say, so much I myself have even learned researching for this video. So like I said, mental health, it's become more of a hot topic. It's a lot more talked about, but it's still very underfunded. And as someone who's been very touched by mental illness, someone who deals with mental illness, I really would like to see a change. So that's why I'm hoping to do my part, and I'm hoping you help me in doing my part by helping with donations. And even if you don't want to or can't help with donations, then I encourage you to, your gift to me can be being a listening ear, being more open, listen to people talking about their feelings. And like I said before, don't be so quick to judge others. Everyone's going through something. And like I said before, people with mental illness don't have flashing neon signs pointing to them saying what they're dealing with. So just be there for others, be a support. I'm wearing K. It may just look like a regular gray tank top, but it says #the Connor Project, which is from the Broadway musical Dear Evan Hansen, which is a musical about, mental illness is a huge part of it. You have the character of Connor Murphy, who has, I don't want to spoil too much, but has depression and dies by suicide. If you've noticed, like, before I've mentioned suicide, I paused because I'm trying to not say commit suicide. Another thing you can do to help is try to say died by suicide or suicided. Like, I know it's common language to say commit suicide, but suicide is not a crime. So to help again prevent some of that negative stigma that's going around, try to not say commit suicide. Even for me, that's really hard because the commonplace language is commit suicide. Anyway, so Connor dies by suicide. You have another character, Evan, the title character, Evan Hansen, who he has anxiety. So mental illness is obviously a big part of that musical. And Evan creates a group in the school, and that's reached out online, called the Connor Project, which is a group to commemorate Connor Murphy and to show others that no one deserves to be forgotten and to disappear, and that you should reach out to others, and that you will be found if you reach out, that others can help you. So thank you for watching this long video. I've rambled on a lot about a lot about things, but I hope it helps to explain not only why this page exists, but also helps to explain me. And now maybe you're understanding why I'm not a chatterbox. Yeah, so thanks for listening, and yeah, I hope that you've learned something.